Happens naturally.
Welcome back to Everything from Nothing, Ireland's most, what's like in a word?
Illegal.
Illegal, yeah, that's maybe, I don't know. We're unloyal, what's like a, is it, or disloyal, because we've removed Stevie for Brendan, a new host. Stevie was just causing too much hassle, asking too many questions, talking all the time. Would never give us a chance to talk. So Stevie's gone now and Brendan's here instead.
You might remember me from the original trilogy of...
Yeah, you were on an episode before, weren't you?
I was on 2 episodes.
The Green Sheep.
Yeah.
Long time.
Who were you on for another guest?
No, but every time I come on, we always end up talking about profiteroles or like croquettes or something like that.
Well, we could do that again. We could give that another go. We're joined this week by Aidan O'Donnell, who's the, am I saying, is it director or chair or what is it of Music Generation?
The
Tipperary?
term is Music Development Officer.
Music Development Officer.
Music Generation Tipperary.
So is that like the MDO? Is that like the CEO of that kind of? Not. Are you like the head of the Tipperary thing? Like
Yeah, so I develop just the music locally here in Tipperary for Music Generation is like a national network across Ireland.
Yeah,
and it's run under ETBs, Tipperary ETB, and locally here, like we're funded by Tipperary ETB and Tipperary County Council, and then through the National Music Generation Network, you're funded through the Department of Education and the Ireland funds and U2.
Okay.
So there's kind of it's a fairly big network, but each county area has their own music generation that's under the ETB. So I kind of run the Tipperary one under the ETB.
Before we get into, before you ended up involved in Music Generation, you're a musician yourself and you're from Donegal. How did you end up here in this place, this Thurles place?
This Thurles place?
Yeah.
Well, my wife's from town.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
My wife's Anya Gleeson.
Okay.
She would have had a pub on the square years ago.
I remember it well.
You remember it well,
it was
do you?
very good, yeah.
You'd have all the stories.
Drinking in there?
I would have been drinking in there.
Were you above age?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
I was. No, it was fabulous. It had a brilliant beer garden and a fire out the back. And I remember music there. There was some fiddles and stuff
Used
going
to
on.
be sessions.
Yeah.
I remember actually myself and my brother coming down from Donegal to do a St. Patrick's Day
I actually think I was there.
session there one time.
Where was this?
It was beside Supermax.
That's right. Yeah.
What was it called at the time? Do you remember?
Gleason's.
Gleason's, yeah.
Gleason's,
She wasn't shy about the name anyway. She just called it Gleason's. So that's kind of what happened. We were studying in Limerick at the time, and sure, what's not to like about a good-looking woman having a pub? There you go. So there you go. So that's how I ended up in Thurles. Yeah. So sure, like, but that's what 18 years ago. So like I'm kind of coming about Thurles.
So do you feel?
Since then, really.
Would you feel more like you're from Thurles now than Donegal, or is it weird? Like, is it? Like
listen to the accent. The Donegal person never gives up their identity. Come on now. That's just not going to happen. You'll have me hurling before that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I remember the O'Donnell School of Music. That was you as well, wasn't it?
That's us,
yeah.
That was, I suppose, like I used to have a music school in Donegal before we moved down.
Yeah.
We kind of spent some time living in Limerick. I was lecturing in UL for a wee while and doing a bit of part-time tutoring and lecturing there. Living in Limerick then, I was kind of touring as a professional musician, but Limerick was still always the base.
What were you lecturing music?
Just kind of fiddling traditional, kind of ethnomusicology, that kind of stuff. In the World Irish Music, it's the World Academy of Music and Dance, the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance now. But that we were kind of stayed there for a good few years, and then I was touring for a lot of years then as well. So it didn't really matter where I was living. So we ended up kind of going between Limerick and then moved home to Donegal for a few years as well, in Donegal town, which was nice.
Yeah.
I'm not from Donegal town now, but like it still was like that's where the town we went to school and all, that kind of way. So yeah, that was kind of the crack.
Are you from a kind of remote part of Donegal and outside of it, or the town?
It's between Donegal town and Killybegs. So it's a wee place called Duncanelly.
Okay.
So I always used to joke people that's where it was in The Simpsons. Like they used to talk about Dunkin' Donuts or Duncanelly. I think that's actually in some place in Ireland, some kind of Irish episode.
That's mad.
So it's a wee tiny place, like, and kind of just. But I'm still living in mostly in Munster since I was 17, going to college and then working here. But we did go back to Donegal for a wee while, but you never lose that identity. It's a funny thing, when you're where you're from is where you're from, I think, a lot of the time, isn't it?
So, did you teach music then to beginners and all that kind of thing starting off? No, or was it more if they wanted to get better?
No, I used to start people from scratch. So when we were in Donegal, that time for a few years, I'd set up my own music school. And Anya used to teach in the music school as well. That was great, So when I came to Thurles then, some of Anya's friends, excuse me, and people just that kind of knew that that's what I'd done in Donegal. So I was very conscious when I moved to Thurles. I didn't want to be setting up any music school because, number one, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep doing that because when you're playing professionally too, you're kind of going away for chunks of time and you're back and you're coming and going. Yeah. But I suppose when you're settling down too, that life, you have to look at it with a different eye too. But anyway, people knew that I was teaching, so they kind of came to me and said, look, we Johnny and Mary want to learn the fiddle, would you take them on? And you were conscious, didn't want to be stepping on anybody's toes, but you took one or two because they were kind of mates. Then all of a sudden somebody heard you were teaching, then there was another person, then before we knew it, actually we had a whole squad of ones, so that's kind of how it started, but the music school at that time here was going well. We'd moved down to, we were operating out of St. Pat's campus at that stage. There was some great wee players there, and some of them when we stopped, some of them didn't keep it going. I was always gutted about that. There was some great wee musicians and characters as well.
Do you ever get people that come every week and don't practice and gets
absolutely worse? But I'll tell you, do you know what I used to try and do again? The fiddle tradition in Donegal is a very interesting tradition. There's loads of stories, and it's not just really about tunes. It's not kind of it's serious, but it's also got this total community function side. In the olden days, it was all about kind of having crack, and it was about being a good person and having a bit of crack first, and if you play the fiddle, fair enough, But because of that, a load of stories used to kind of come out of it, and to this day, a lot of the teachers there would still tell the stories and all the folklore stories that goes with it. So as part of my classes, I used to do the same thing. And that's where you would see some of the wee characters. You'd be encouraging them to practice through the stories. And I'll never forget one thing that happened. There was this wee girl, Emma, was coming in to me to learn the fiddle, And when you're learning the fiddle, one of the most important things about the fiddle is to keep your bow really straight. And get your technique right, But to keep your bow straight is really important because without that, you're not going to make a very good sound, So I told this old story about this old fiddle player. Now I kind of had to change the story to suit the 8-year-old that was in front of me. But the story was, there was this really famous fiddle player in Donegal fiddle music called John Doherty. And to this day, he's regarded probably as one of the greatest fiddlers that's ever lived, in that tradition. And he was interviewed this time by a local media, somebody, and they asked him who was the best fiddle player he ever saw. And the reason was that, geez, if he thought he was good, he must have been
brilliant,
magic altogether. And he said it was his father, and the reason was that he saw his father one night play in this old pub, kind of like a Jim in the Mills for all the world, kind of a place, this old place, the half door, and the big old hearth inside the door, and he was playing away on this really low stool. So it really was kind of old wooden stools, really low. And sitting behind him, just behind his head here, was a big Irish wolfhound dog. Right? And the dog was sitting there listening to the tunes as Irish wolfhound dogs do. And he was playing away, great form, with these lovely big straight bows, striding bowing. And all of a sudden the dog started yelping and going crazy and just darted out the door like that. And nobody knew what was wrong with the dog until he stopped playing. And there was the eye of the dog on the tip of the bow, right? So obviously you can't tell that to an 8-year-old child to his coming into for lessons. So I changed that straight away and says, and he was so good with the bow that he actually took the eye out of the dog's head and put it back into the dog's head before the dog knew it was missing it all.
So that was your rendition of it. That's right good. I actually like that one.
Think of how good he must have been with the bow now, that it was that accurate and that straight. You think about that there now this week when you're practicing home, just lovely straight bow, okay? In she comes the following week, and I kind of knew she was in bad humour, she was not looking happy with me at all. And I said, Emma, how's the form? Bad. And I says, why? Mommy sold the dog. She went home, was practicing on the dog all week. She's
Wait.
and that ended all my stories in the class forevermore after that.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
Mommy sold the dog. My God, you know what I mean?
No.
That's great.
So that ended the story.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That's brilliant. Like,
But you do get like that's the thing. That's the lovely thing about teaching
yeah,
young ones. I love it because you do get characters and wee stories, and
yeah.
you know, they're great. Like, you know, they really are.
It's mad though, and I never caught that till now. Like, yeah, 'cause, I was thinking all the stories we would have been told about the, like, you know, going into the strange farmers' fields and what sort of creatures would get you and stuff. And when you kind of realised now it was all farmers that told us those stories, who owned the fields, and it did keep us away. Like, so it's funny. I wonder how, you know, is that still being used today? Like all these,
Well,
yeah,
do you know, there's like, I always think it's kind of cool. Like, there's a type of innocence to it, like, and it's kind of been
Yeah.
lost a wee bit, like.
yeah,
You know,
definitely.
there's
Yeah.
something lovely about kind of hanging on to those stories, and
Definitely.
like a lot of, like, I think there's a lot of identity in that.
There
Do you
is.
know,
Yeah.
there's kind of a lot of who we are in those old stories. Do you know what I mean? Granted, like, you know, fair enough, they might be from farmers or whatever. But
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
all- They're all of the time. Like, I remember
Definitely.
I remember an aunt of mine, and she was convinced that she saw like a fairy man, as she called him, like, or a leprechaun, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that was that story never changed, and she died at like 94.
Wow.
yeah.
But the story was exactly the same. It's not like it was.
What did she see and where did she see it?
She apparently she saw this wee fell up on a rock, like, and that was it, and that was the crack. But like,
Yeah.
Do you think she did?
sure, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What do you think?
I think.
I don't know.
I think
I'm
she
not so
did.
sure. Like,
I think she did.
I don't know.
I think she probably did.
well, maybe she did. Like, but I don't know. Like, there was always those old stories.
I
These
did.
we're going away on a tangent now, but right, I remember some of these old stories when we were growing up, even at the house, like the where I lived. I lived in a place called St. John's Point.
Yeah.
Really scenic place, and Donegal's beautiful. Like, you know, really is gorgeous. But like, there were always stories about the banshee and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing about it was kind of fascinating that the nights people would hear these things happening,
Yeah.
people would be dying, like they'd be dropping like
know.
flies.
I know.
Yeah, there was.
So it started kind of getting a wee bit.
Yeah.
Like, my own family
Yeah.
ended up hearing the banshee.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one.
My grandfather
What?
heard the banshee as well.
Yeah.
What you said? Your family ended up here. What was
Hearing
it?
the banshee.
Or hearing them. That's mad.
Yeah. So there's kind of funny things like
Yeah.
that you would kind of.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that kind of to look at them,
Yeah.
they weren't.
Making it up.
You were kind of starting to kind of wonder yourself.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I do.
I think that's what kind of throws all that stuff into.
In modern times as well, it's weird. I remember we had Eddie Lenihan. He's like a storyteller. We had him on the podcast, and we asked him, why is there like less stories? Like, why aren't people like our age, you know, having these experiences? And his thing was electricity. He was like, sure, they won't go out into the dark. And I was thinking about that. People I know who are like completely just closed off to the idea that any of that could have existed. Still those people, like, there's no way that these things existed, or you know, everyone was imagining things. But those same people that say that won't go out for a long walk at the night time in the countryside, and then that means it's innate. It's like in their DNA. It's in, like, you know, there's the fear the fear of someone's watching them. Like, even the biggest skeptics in the world, like, they just won't go down that for a long walk at 4 a.m. down a countryside road.
You know when someone's telling you that they're telling the truth as well, don't you? You know,
Yeah.
when they're not making it up.
Well, yeah. Well, you know whether they believe it.
Yeah.
That, you know, that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
they believe that they saw what they saw.
I-
But like, yeah, I mean, I'm making it sound like I kind of believe in all that stuff. But
Yeah,
I must say,
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. Like, but it's still interesting that you chat.
It is.
There's one or two instances now from my family
Yeah.
that you're kind of going, right enough, that's unusual.
Yeah.
And you're kind of reckon your logical brain is kind of going. So, and you know that they believe it as
Yeah.
well, and you know that what happened to them did happen.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, that you know that it's not, as you say, you know they're telling the truth. Like, so
Well,
I find it fascinating.
There's like different people that tell. There's like the people who tell the story out of, like, who you know are the type of people to tell stories. You know, often like one of the people in your group of when you were growing up, like, who would just always be telling stories for the sake of having, and you kind of know, you know, instantly that it's nonsense, whatever. But the thing about when some people tell you, often older people or people in family, and definitely the older generations, where like they're not even doing out of a storytelling thing to scare. They'd know you just know those type of people have no other reason to tell it other than they're just saying the thing that they experienced. You know, not liars or not like storytellers, just people telling their experience.
Yeah.
That's interesting, I think.
Yeah. But then you see, that I kind of see all this with the music thing as well. Like,
Yeah.
you see, there is that kind of foreign tea kind of element too. Like, you know, where people, like, there's, I was told, probably guys, I might have told a few true stories as part of me gigs maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's part of the crack. And
Yeah.
I used to see people, there was these old fiddle players in Donegal called the Campbells. They were related to myself. And they were brilliant. Like, they were absolute legends. But they kind of showed you how to be a really nice person involved in crack. Do you know what I mean? But their whole thing was to be telling out stories and stuff.
Yeah.
And some of them could be true. Some of them, you know, that it's kind of crack orientated and it's to kind of wind things up and get a, you know what I mean? It's, you learn a lot from that. Like, and you know, sometimes that might be where some of these things are as well, which is great.
Hey, come here, did you get to travel much with the music? Like,
I got to travel a good bit. Like,
where'd you go?
Went
everywhere.
All over, really. Yeah. So we
America,
States, Germany. Actually, the usual places. Got to some kind of more unusual places then, like Macedonia, Iceland, Thailand.
Wow,
that was a rare one now.
And would you be playing over there and stuff like in those?
Yeah, so we'd be invited to go, and Latvia, we were kind of different.
Did you, like, say America, would you have to set up a tour or something before you go? And
we would have had like agents that they sort out the tour for you, and then you just go and do your dates. Like, so you might do a month, do 6 weeks.
And is it intense? Do you have to, like, every night playing somewhere? Or
so like, you're on the road. It's not the
holiday.
It's not the holiday people think. Like, people see you up on that stage for 2 hours or whatever, but they don't see you getting back in the car and then driving another 3 hours to get down the motorway to get to the next place. Or you might even get to the next place. That's just to break the back of the journey.
Where did you play in the States?
We were on the Midwest a lot. So we've kind of done everything from New York on the side to. We used to love going to like some Milwaukee Irish Fest, or do you know where I loved was Chicago?
Oh wow.
Loved playing Chicago. We used to do this venue there called the Old Town School of Folk. Yeah. It's kind of a prestigious venue there. Like, it was a lovely old place to play, and I just loved the crack in Chicago as well. That was the other side of it. Like, there were kind of different things that used to happen there, and there were different kind of that was kind of funny. We got a few nights like a Buddy Guy's bar and the Kingston Mines and places. We got to meet some really cool musicians.
Did you meet
there.
Buddy Guy?
No, he wasn't there the night we were there, but we got the musicians in the band. When they found out we were on tour, they took us to this place, and this place called the Kingston Mines. And if you're ever in Chicago, I would encourage everybody to go to see that place. It was class. All kind of funk and blues kind of music, but it's going to like 4 a.m. It's like
that's
it's like a club, but it's all like, it might be 2 or 3 live bands going, and they're all just amazing. But apparently this place, if you're a well-known musician like Mick Jagger on occasion apparently shows up, like, so this kind of stuff.
Wow.
We were there on tour with a Donegal band called the Henry Girls. Don't know if you've heard of the Henry Girls.
Yeah, I have,
So the girls are great crack, like they're brilliant crack altogether, and they're so easygoing and so nice, like, and we went outside of Buddy Guy's, and we knew we needed to get to this place, and it was kind of on a corner, and we were looking, and we needed to get a taxi or something, and next thing, across the way, this big limo pulled up, and the girls just, hey, wait here a second, and over the way and started chatting to this boy in the limo, and next thing, about a couple of minutes later, the big Donegal wave came, come on boys, come on, and we got to hop into the limo to get to the Kingston Mines. The problem was, when we got to the Kingston Mines and a limo pulled up, all these people outside had cameras, and they presumed it was going to be somebody famous, and instead it looked like the limo just gave birth to half a Donegal, like outside of the limo. Do you know what I mean? You could see the disappointment on his face coming, like, do you know?
That's
like good. No, Chicago was a nice place. It was really good crack.
Did you ever go over? Cause I know a lot of Turles heads go over to Salt Lake City because it's twinned. Wasn't there a lot of trad musicians going over there?
I was never there anyway.
Really? Okay.
Never there, no.
So, you know, all like for years, like recently, like I think Izzy and all them were before COVID over there, because it's like twinned with Turles, so they get like they have the Hibernian. What are the?
Yeah, Ancient Order of Hibernia or something like that. Father Luke Carley from Thurles is a parish priest over in Salt Lake City.
And they kind of arrange like trad musicians and stuff. But yeah, the lads were playing, the strings and things were playing in Florida. They were over how Walt Disney was paying them. But I was just thinking, like, they were up there like 6 nights a week just on stage, just like having, because especially it looked like torture, because it even looked like worse than playing like a sort of house gig here, where, you know, because there they have to like not just perform all their same songs every night, they have to be the happy Irish guys in front of the Americans as well, and it looked like just draining. I don't know if I'd be able for that, but like, you know, to everyone else it probably just looked like they were on holidays and in Florida, you know, but they were working hard, like.
And you know, that's one of the things people forget about touring. Like, when you're out and you're doing your show, actually after the shows can be nearly more draining, because every town you go to, that's their one night out, but that could be night 12 for you, or 13, and you've already travelled maybe 6-7 hours that day. So like, you're knackered. You know, you're literally you're so tired by the time you get to there. Like, do you know what I mean? That can be the crack. But you try your best, and you go out and chat to those people. You know, there's a what's called a house concert circuit in America too. When you're kind of trying to get into America, a lot of Irish traditional musicians especially would go that route, because it's good. Like, you probably get what's called a filler gig. So if you know you've got these venues that you're traveling between, you're gonna want, instead of having a day off, you're better having somewhere where you're not putting yourself up and you're getting paid something. Do you know what I'm saying? So the crack was that you could, there's kind of a network of those across America too that you would end up doing.
Are they lucrative, or is it the whole thing?
Depends on. I mean, they can be, because again, like, you have people in that, like, when you talk about a house concert there, like, some of the houses are massive.
Wow.
So like, it still is going to be a big enough audience that they're paying X amount ahead. And then you're getting your CD sales. So it's still better than having a night off.
Absolutely.
You know, but the point is, if you're staying in those people's house, or, you know, you're playing in their house, you have to be polite as well. And
of course.
If you're tired or not doesn't really factor into it.
It's bad.
You want you to have a crack, like, which is lovely. And like, we never minded doing that. But we didn't have to do too much of that now with our band, to be honest. We kind of, I done that with a few other bands that was with, rather like, my main band is a band called Fidel, Fidil, and it's like a fiddle trio. So like, we would have done most of me kind of traveling with that outfit, really. Great crack.
Wow.
Good. So like, it's 3 fiddles from Donegal was the idea, but not played in a conventional way. So like, we'd be strumming them and baiting them and plucking them and using octave fiddles, but the idea was that the rule was it all had to be fiddle.
How did you promote that? Like, so for instance, like, to get the people to buy tickets to come out and see you, like, or were they coming anyway, or how did it?
I don't know. Like, myself and a guy called Kieran Mwene kind of started off. We done a duet album, and just got well reviewed, I suppose. And then we added a third lad to the band to kind of do some of the arrangements that we'd done on the CD. And that's how it just kind of took off. We were kind of just getting more gigs and all. And do you know what? I don't know if we set out to market it, if you know what I'm saying.
Just took off kind of.
People seemed to just like what we were doing, and that was good enough for us. Like,
that's class,
but I don't think we kind of, we weren't kind of thinking to ourselves, what kind of music now would sell?
I know what you
Definitely not. What we wanted to do was, we very much were, again, looking, because the Donegal fiddle tradition is very much an iconic sound in Irish music. We were very much in that vein, and we were, even though we were doing new things with it, we still wanted to keep that very traditional link. So like, we weren't kind of trying to go too far away from that, or like, we weren't kind of saying, well, what would be cool if we done now, how many hits will this get? We didn't really care about that. We just kind of done our own thing, and people just kind of seemed to like it for as long as it was.
Would the crowds be big, like, for a gig like that, or how would it work?
Depends. Like, you could have everything, like, so we would have done like the national concert all here, and we would have done the likes of Milwaukee Irish Fest. You could have up to 15,000.
Wow. Geez.
But like, it's not just your band that's doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they were coming to see us specifically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But most, like, some of the art centres and venues we would have been doing, you're talking, do you know what? We played to everything from maybe a couple of thousand to 5.
Wow.
I remember there was one really depressing night in Edinburgh, and the local promoter, that we had a manager or like an agent who'd set up the gigs, but I don't think the local promoter maybe was as active as he had made out to the agent. You know what I'm saying? And I think there was 5 people there, like, and I was kind of looking. I was looking at the fiddles even we were using on stage, because we used different tunings and we used different types of fiddles. Like we had more bloody fiddles on stage than there were people in the audience. But they like.
And did you still just give it socks? Just give it form
just
fully.
turn up and do your thing, don't you? Like, and be proud of it. But like, thanks be to God there weren't too many of them nights. Like, you wouldn't want too many of them. Like, you know.
That happened to Beatles on the south of England. Oh, God.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah,
it did. Yeah, it was, and they were. It was, I can't even remember what town it was, but there was 5 people turned up because the local guy never put up the posters.
Yeah,
just didn't bother.
Yeah,
and there was 5 or 6 people there, but like.
And that's the thing when you're traveling. Like, you see, you are actually, you are relying a lot on the local buy-in from the people who are organising for you, and you sometimes don't know what that's like until you get there. You're kind of hoping that you're working. Yeah, you just try to work with the best people you can. Trust people. Yeah.
It's weird as well though, because even see it, like there's like so many parts, like even like the Source, for example, you'd see some like Thurles, you know, it's even outside the ability or the amount that someone promotes or who's even coming. Like sometimes like the best musician could come to Thurles and the Source could promote it way more than any other gig, and then people still don't show up. So it's like each town is like, I don't even know how you. Yeah, I can imagine it's weird. I always think about that. It must be weird for people who are touring. They could go to a big town and no one show up, and then they go to the middle of nowhere and they have a full crowd. It's like,
it's really weird. Like,
yeah,
we had a fella we brought, and you know what? I will say that like that is one thing about that you'd notice moving from Donegal to Thurles.
Yeah,
like Thurles is spoiled for choice when it comes to music. And do you know what? Not just music, everything. Like, do you know, there's such a tradition of drama, as you were saying earlier, like, and musicals and rock bands, trad. Like, it's unreal. And the Source, to be fair, there's lots of stuff going on. Like,
always,
you know, there really is. Like, but you notice that. I remember a couple of years ago, we'd 2 guys doing workshops for us, and we brought them to doing workshops in Hayes' Hotel. So their manager got on to me and he says he knew I used to organise gigs all the time up in Donegal. And he knew it was in Thurles, and he was putting together a tour. He was looking for me to put something on for these 2 guys. It was an accordion player called Dermot Byrne and a guitar player called Steve Cooney. Now, some of you'd probably recognise Steve Cooney if you saw him. He's the guy familiar. He's the guy with the dreads that plays in the bare feet.
Oh, right,
You've probably seen him telly loads. Like, so he'd have been playing with like everybody from Sinead O'Connor to whoever. Like, you know, he used to be playing guessing with loads and loads of really famous people, and trad as well, obviously. And sure, we were delighted to get them. And what I said to the manager was, like, I can't guarantee that, you know, there's going to be
people here.
So I say, look, we can get them in to do the classes, and we can give them a fee for the classes. But in reality, you know, you're close enough to Kilkenny, and the only other place I could think of that was doing like they'd done a few accordion type gigs, which is what Dermot Byrne plays, was, you know, Buddy's Big Shed, you know, Buddy's Bar out in Glengule, isn't it?
Glengule, yeah. That's still going.
Buddy Brennan is.
Buddy Brennan's like, so I know the Sinead was had run the odd gig there, and it went well in the Shed, like, you know, but this was in the middle of the winter.
Okay.
So I said, look, unless you want to chat to Sinead and see, you know, there'd be something there. So, and your boy that was organising them the tour, Sinead had said, like, geez, we can't put anything in the Shed, it's freezing, like, you know what I mean? And, you know, we've a party on that night. You know, so that was the crack. But your boy ended up booking the 2 boys for like this 80th birthday party. And what was weird about it was that they were in talking, they were having the spuds up at our house. We were living in Ashgrove at the time. They were having the spuds, like, and they were chatting, like, it's like anybody working. If you were chatting about your work, like, geez, I'm having awful bother with this. Well, how would you get around that kind of chat? Except they were talking about US performing visas. Wow. And your voice, Dermot was saying, I'm applying for that now. I'm trying to get a visa and blah blah. And Steve was just kind of saying, I remember that time I was doing a Letterman with Sinead, like, and it was this, and he was talking about Letterman, this, and one other time he was on with Jay Leno.
Wow.
And then he was doing an 80th birthday party
Butty Brennan.
Out in there,
Brennan,
an actual barn, like.
Do you know, he'd gone from
Yeah.
that conversation to half an hour later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I must say, it always kind of struck me.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't
Do
it?
you know?
Yeah.
But then it's so professional, just so pro. The
Same
boys
thing.
just turned up, done their thing, and but like how lucky were them people? Like they didn't realize who they had, like world class musicians.
And the thing is, they probably like the contract, or just even that the rare, like someone who's been on like Letterman shows like that, like those type of people will remember like the barn as well, because of it's the opposite of what. So like, you know, people like that. I met a few musicians like that who would you know, had been in mad places like that, and they're always like actually really sound like opposite to like you know, what people think in terms of like, yeah, you know, if someone's going to end up in that both places, like they're usually well like grounded and just genuine people. What I was going to say, you speak somehow, it's rare now, but you speak our own language fluently. How did that come about? You speak, is that just because you speak Irish, which is very rare here in Ireland?
Well, I would say I don't speak Irish.
You
fluently.
don't?
No.
Okay.
I just think I sound like it. I think like most things, when you live in Thurles, you can get away with a lot with a Donegal accent, I think. That's probably a lot to do
Did
with
you
it.
grow up in a Gaeltacht then? No.
No.
Well, I've heard you have full on conversations that the teachers,
But that kind of was a relatively late thing in my life.
Okay.
Like it,
All
but
right.
I wouldn't consider myself fluent. I kind of have enough to get away with it.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be shy about doing it. And then I suppose, I don't know.
It sounds fluent to me anyway, because when I heard you have conversations, I don't know what you're talking about. I couldn't even eavesdrop. Like,
I remember kind of saying, I used to have an interest when you're trying to promote your stuff.
Yeah.
We used to be on rather than the Gaeltacht quite a bit from the trad point of view.
Okay.
And I kind of remember as well, I would have learned a bit of Irish from my grandmother. So my father would have been, is a native speaker.
Yes.
Where we grew up in Duncanelly, there was no Irish growing up, and my mother didn't have Irish. Do you know what I mean? So there wasn't much, language or anything. But on my father's side, like his father would have been a fluent speaker. He would have been a poet and an author, and he would have written books in Irish and English. He would have been
What was
very
his name?
Michael O'Donnell or Michael O'Donnell.
Oh.
And then my granny, again, she would have been, or she's still alive. She's Bridie O'Donnell, and she was Campbell from a place in Donegal called Glenties. So outside Glenties, there's a place called Silver Hill, and her people then before that came from a place called the Cruacha, which was like the real central Gaeltacht in Donegal. So my grandfather was from Kilcar. There were two Gaeltacht areas, and it was funny. My father never spoke Irish to us though, and it was really we were always really cross with it until I was doing work experience from UL, and I'd set up a wee archive. I was helping setting up an archive in Kilcar. This man called Miha McGill Aspug, again, who's a fluent Irish speaker, lovely man, and kind of done a lot for music in that area, you know, and collecting stuff and recording these old fiddle players. So he'd all these old tapes, and he wanted to save them. You know, that other people would have them. So I was kind of helping work on that there when he was setting it up. And my grandmother, she, like, every morning she would be baking bread and scones and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember this morning I came down, one of the first mornings was there, sat down the table, 8 o'clock. Granny was already up baking, the smell of the brown bread going through. It was class, like. And she said something like, you know, well, Jim or that to imagine, or something simple.
Yeah.
You know, and realised that there was absolute silence from the table. And she was there with her back to me, you know, kneading the bread. And then she said something else and realised that there was complete silence for a second time. And then realised that actually what she had was somebody who didn't know. So I remember she kind of very slowly went over to the phone. She dusted off the flour off the hand, went right over to the phone, lifted the phone, and you didn't need to have good Irish to know that she ripped my elbow a new one and the best Irish you've ever heard. Like, you know? And that was it. So she used to speak Irish to me then regularly, her and Grandad in the house. So I learned a bit from that. And the other man that was a real influence on me for being able to having the confidence. I think that's what it is. It's the confidence to
say what you do know, like
and make mistakes.
Yeah.
There was a man who was a a radio presenter on Rather the Gaelta that they called Ronan McCoy.
Okay.
And Ronan is this very special person. Like, he's one of those people with massive energy, and people gravitate towards him. Like, and he's a great way of encouraging people into the language and, you know, just having crack anyway around it. And I remember kind of having a go chatting to Ronan at one stage, and kind of, I was like most people, you're apologetic that you're not able to converse fluently. And he kind of went, like, well, what are you talking about? He says, do you think the Queen speaks perfect English? You know, you're damn sure she doesn't. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's people who are around here that they don't speak perfect English. So why are you worried about speaking
Perfect Irish?
Yeah.
Like, for him, it was all about communicating. So he says, as long as people know that you're trying, and the more you do it, you'll pick up those words for the next time. And he was right. The more I did it and wasn't afraid of being embarrassed, you actually, I put myself in situations like being on the radio and stuff where, you know, if you think about it, like, every time you meet somebody, the first 3 minutes of every conversation is generally the same, unless you know them well. How you getting on? Oh, Jesus, not so bad. It's tight weather today. Blah, blah. So you can have
all that,
a fair bit of stuff in the bank.
That's really interesting, actually.
You know, and then see how you get on. And that's the way I approached it.
Wow.
I kind of would have me banker things to keep. Once you could get over, do you know what it was like? It's like trying to train for a 10K. You don't start off going out and doing a 10K if you've done nothing before. You try and train for a 5K first, and then every time you get over that, you're building up your time. Same thing. That's the way. Brilliant. That's the best way I can kind of relate it to it. That is, you know, you're building up your wee bit of language and getting further on.
I suppose it's the same as like musical language as well. Like when you're learning any kind of instrument, it's like you don't, you know, compose an entire song from scratch straight away. Like you've got to learn the notes first and then learn the chords and then build it up that way. So it's like
absolutely. And again, it's the same communication piece. So like you're trying to figure out how you communicate yourself. That's the interesting thing. Like I'd love to, I think it's something over the next couple of years I would like to put more effort into, and I don't put enough effort into, is being more fluent in Irish. Like it grinds me that my family traditionally it grinds me that we're the first, myself and my brother are the first in the line that don't have it.
My grandfather spoke Irish. He's from Annadown in Galway, and but my parents didn't. You know, like my mother wouldn't have. You know what I mean? So he used to speak away to people in Irish, and they wouldn't have a clue what he was saying. You know, they used to be quite worried because he could say anything in English, so he could say anything in Irish. You know.
Do you know what used to be interesting to me though? Because when my old boy comes down to Thurles for a pint, and we used to go out for a pint in town. Once the pints be flowing, like it's funny, you could bring him into somewhere like the Arch then, and mad to speak Irish. Because he's in Thurles, like proud of it then, you see, and proud that we can both speak Irish. So I've seen there's a couple of times where that's happened.
Why do you think that? Do you think it's just was it just was too used to it up there, or like why would you prefer it down here?
I don't think it was I think it's just that now I don't know why that. I think look, I actually don't know why. I know that like where we grew up, like there was no language. There just wasn't. It was one of those places where like even traditional music, it's probably a fluke we played that too.
Okay.
Like where we grew up, like it was mostly rock. Bands locally or kind of people doing other musics, but like there was one accordion player called Martin Wilson. Like he was this really good accordion player, and he was the only one in the town really that played. And then there was a music teacher called Seamus Sweeney that used to come once a week, and he taught loads of people. Very few kept it up. There was only maybe a handful of us. There was a couple of us. There was we had a wee band going. There was about 5 of us that had a wee band going, and we were kind of the most of the people who'd kept it going in the Duncan Ailey area, like, and that was kind of it. Like,
were you good to practice? Like, do you reach a boredom threshold when you're trying to break something down and practice and get through it, or do you?
No, I'm terrible to practice.
Are you?
Oh, I don't practice at all.
No.
Like, to be honest, it's a bit of a fluke I'm playing music at all.
Yeah.
If I'm totally honest, like sport was my thing. Football was religion in our house, Gaelic football, and athletics. But I dislocated that shoulder 6 times and that one 7 times as a teenager. So what happened was, I was playing the fiddle. Like, I think my parents kind of have this romantic I think it's a memory they've made up because I don't remember it.
Yeah, okay.
They remember me going to practice.
All the time.
Whereas I don't. I remember myself maybe the odd evening going down and playing for 20 minutes, but not
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't doing like any crazy practice. I was out kicking a ball far more than I was playing the fiddle. But like the more I got injured, the more then you had nothing else to do, only
practice of it.
playing the fiddle. You were just passing the time, so you weren't able to go out and be physical.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the crack. And
did you enjoy that practice though when you were doing it? No, or just like
for me, it's always been about the connection with people. Okay. It's a vehicle for crack.
So
you know,
when you're practicing on your own, you're thinking of, when I go back and meet them now, we'll be able to do this too, or what?
Not necessarily. Like I'm kind of just playing my mood. I think is probably the best way to describe it. Like I'm not really thinking about any performance per se. But like even probably the fact is like I don't practice that often, which was kind of the thing. Like that was the thing. Like I know that sounds a bit mad, especially when you're a professional musician. Yeah, I used to practice as a wee bit as a young person. Like you can't get to a standard without some practice. But I always kicked myself that I never put in the effort that I should have. To be honest, like because you should do it.
I remember me and my brother used to play the piano, you know, and we used to go to piano lessons every Saturday, and we wouldn't have practiced from the previous Saturday. And but eventually an exam had come up or whatever, so you'd have to practice. But like it was always at the last minute we'd sail in under the, you know, what you're saying. And you kind of think, why didn't I practice? I would have enjoyed this more if I had practice. But it's
in the music gen thing we've got going locally, like a lot of the time we don't talk. About one of the musician educators we have is a lady called Niamh Fenton. She's from Ballymac, and she's a brilliant educator, like she really is. But she had come up with this word, like, and again, she wasn't talking to the young people about practice. It was you play music. You don't practice music. You play music.
Oh, that's cool.
So it reframes it. Because then for those young people, you're encouraging them to play, not to practice.
Okay.
Again, it's kind of like speaking as well, though. Like you don't, like when children are learning to speak, they don't practice words. They're just imitating what their parents are doing, or you know, it's like it's not a chore.
Well, it's an embodiment. Like you're looking to internalize everything that's been thrown at you, and then once it's internalized, it comes out naturally.
Okay, but so I'm playing lately. I started playing again, right? So what I'm doing is I'm not practicing. I'm playing really badly. I would hope someday it will get better. Well, I don't know. Actually, I'm kind of slowing down because I have a set piece of time that I'm going to do this, and I'm just going, whatever. I'm just doing it. You know what I mean?
But I would say to you, like, you're only playing badly because that's your judgment.
Yes.
If you're playing and your enjoyment, then that's the whole idea of playing.
Play,
But I think it would be I believe it would be other people's judgment as well if they heard it, you know.
Maybe they might enjoy it. That's the other side of it. Like. But you know what? Like that's actually good. I suppose it goes back for me to that thing I was saying earlier, and that's the space I definitely came from hanging out with the likes of the Campbells and these older fiddlers. It was always about crack and enjoyment. It wasn't about being. And I think that's something that that from a trad point of view, we'd be very careful about. That it's not like, I know this is coming from somebody who performed as a professional musician, but at all stages for us, going to sessions and all that was much more important, and still is. Like because like if it's an interesting thing, if you put it out there that being in a band and being a professional performer, that's the epitome. And that's the standard you have to achieve. Well, that's changing the cultural function of the whole tradition. You know, that's changing why the music was there. If it was only for a bit of crack and get people to a session, get the community to enjoy a bit of crack. And you know, it's a different context completely. So there was kind of an interesting conversation probably there too, you know.
I do get the connection of the band. So even though wouldn't have been that good, we formed a band and we had so much fun, like, and it does, the connection of 4 people playing in a little band together or whatever, it really brings you on your interest and your and we just play over and over again because we just enjoyed it. That was definitely fun.
And then like again at that, it's like anything, like I suppose it's like hurling or sport too, like at that elite level you find connections with people, and that's how they're like, if you're in a band and you're starting to find that things fall into place easily, you know, there's something nice, there's something unique about that too. Like, you know, if you get a really good session of trad, and not just trad, like any music, like, you know, rock, pop,
Yeah.
you're in a groove and you're finding that groove with people, you know, and that's where you create really good vibes, like good music.
One of my favorite quotes, Alan Watts, is the birds that sing, they don't sing for the progression of music. Like, they just sing because that's what's happening now, but I think I think more now because of like TikTok and YouTube and everything, that like I think it's important for it to be instilled that you know, for people to play like the birds singing, like they're not looking for anything out of it, they're not looking to finish piece, they're not looking to just, because right now, it's definitely heading towards more like I better have this thing perfected before I present it to anyone. And definitely I think that's why, like, you know, kids are afraid to dance and they're afraid to like get it wrong and just start banging on stuff. And kids more like older teenagers, I feel like kids will always be wild and banging on stuff. I don't think any amount of internet will change that. But yeah, definitely with older teenagers and stuff, younger adults, it's definitely like a thing now where, like, you know, getting them to sing. I like the thing out Jim of the Mills, like everyone has to do a song, like, and I think stuff like that's important because that's like what instills the idea that you play to play and not to sort of present this perfect piece that represents who you are and whether you're good enough as a person, because that goes into the rest of life as well. Like I apply that, like, in general, like, is replace the word work. If I start saying, oh, I have to do this work, I try and figure out how to mentally feel like in my head that it's play instead. And I think Irish tradition would have always been about play and work, even in the farm, and even, you know, there was a very like attentiveness to what people used to do, even if it was like tending to the cows and tending to there was always a kind of, people could have been having the crack and stuff, building sites. You still see it, like stuff like that. But yeah, I think people are getting a bit more self-conscious, which is taken away from play in life. So I think it's cool to instill.
You definitely see people having the crack on building sites, singing and whistling and stuff like that, and
they nearly keep it alive. Like,
they do, yeah.
They're messing and.
Well, it's still community based then, you see, because that building site in itself is a community.
It is, and the laugh, and the whistling, and the painters whistling and singing. There's some great singers. Painters are great singers. Yeah.
That's it. Like, the danger is that when you're involved with the internet and with social media, that's that's still a community. It's a virtual community.
Yes.
Definitely.
But the problem with that virtual community is sometimes isn't a reflection, and it's very much contextual. So like it's based on your context and how you visit that community.
Back to
do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you could have one person watch one TikTok video, as you say, or something online, and depending on the context, two people might take two very different approaches. They might say, Jesus, I'm going to be that. And the other person will say, geez, I'll never be that. So whereas like if within a local context, and I've been able just to kind of play music for the sake of it, and realize that that's enough. That's an important piece, like, you know, it really is. Definitely. And just it's internalized, like there's just something you do.
And I feel like in whatever you want to call it, the real world, in the third dimension, whatever you want to call it, like in that people are more like forgiven and like, you know, you to make a mistakes. Definitely online, I do find it interesting. Like, people always say, like, you know, it'd be cool if we, and I definitely agree, like, because we all show the finished pieces, you know, when we're happy and stuff. And I thought about that before, like, when I was like, I've been off Instagram and stuff for a while, but when I was on it, I was always uploading stuff when I was feeling happy, because when you're you know, people say you should upload you know, all parts, but like the reality is, like, you're just not going to feel like uploading when you're feeling good or because you're not feeling it. The other side of it, I think online, if I just like started uploading a video of me having a mental breakdown, it's like people are more forgiving of that in person than online. If you do that online, like, I just think online's a weird place where it is only a sort of world where people can sort of experience like the sort of polished pieces. And even when someone puts up like a status about, you know, stuff they're going through, it's also not very in the moment honest either, because it's a polished version of your sort of retrospect of the, you know, manic episode someone might have had or whatever it is. So it's
also permanent as well, though. That's the problem. Like,
it's permanent.
When you talk like to somebody in public, let's say, or like when you're not recording a conversation, you've more freedom to just say what you want, because as soon as you finish talking, it's not like
they
set in
forgot
stone, and then like people can dig it up like 10 years later and say, oh, you said this, and
that's
that
true,
kind of
actually.
thing. So like,
I'd want to vet this podcast before it goes out, but I would see what I make sure it didn't say anything dodgy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think it relates to as well? Is like I've suffered terrible with nerves. I hate performing the fiddle, like, and it's such a weird thing to say, considering.
Yeah, that's
I've
what you were
toured
saying
and
there.
all
Yeah,
that,
that's
like,
that.
But a bit of that is to do with that. It's kind. I think that's like the pre-move to social media. So because there's that shift from playing in your local session to all of a sudden being on stage.
Yeah.
Being on stage straight away means there's a pressure to perform, and then ironically, the more well known you get for doing that, now all of a sudden you're well known for doing that, and every time somebody hears you, it's expected to be,
because that's your that's your identity now.
Yeah.
Like.
Whereas if you're playing down the Monks and you do a couple of
Yeah.
steps, like, you know, it's grand, it's a night out, like, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But if somebody's paying £20 a pop to hear you,
Yeah, that's
they
true,
don't want to hear that. Like, show up and give me a show, and you put that pressure. I think a lot of the time, actually, I'm wrong there. The people who come and pay in to see you, they're actually the same as those people in the Monks. They're totally on your side. They've come to hear you and whatever's going on. They just want that experience and fun and energy and whatever. But you put it on yourself.
You do.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's from that thing. Like, it's like the TikTok video. It's the context. So I know one person. I know there's one of the lads in my band. Like, he just doesn't get nervous. He just that's it. He just goes out and he's the same, playing the same.
Mad,
It doesn't matter. Whereas I'd be crumbling, like. So it's the same context, but there's two different people coming at it from completely different points of view. So the same as the TikTok thing. Like, you can see something and it can absolutely have.
I get very nervous going on a stage or whatever. Like, I have to do all this ritual stuff. So, like, say it's in the source, we're doing a play. I have to walk between all of the seats, every one of them, over and back, because then I feel like the audience is coming into my space. And all
Wasn't I saying you were urinating on the seats or something?
I didn't do that. No, that was somebody else.
I wasn't mad.
But like, that was the dog.
Oh yeah, but you were saying something about your dad's like you're urinating on the seats.
Just because the seats were wet or not to do with me. But yeah, no. So if you walk over and back, so then when they come in, then they're coming into your space rather than
feel comfortable.
But like, it's kind of. And Joe, I'm worse in somewhere like the Source. But if we go off doing a festival somewhere, or festivals, I don't mind it because I don't know them. It doesn't matter. I actually love that. That's fun because it doesn't really matter. I know
for me, it just used to jump up on me.
Did it?
So there's times I could be playing and I could have the best gig in my life and I'd love it.
Yeah.
When you be on tour, and then there's times where you think you're grand, you actually think you're in great shape. I was telling you, I think we were talking about that earlier. There was one gig last year, and I'd kind of worked hard. We were playing in the National Concert Hall, and I'd done loads of good rehearsals, and it was with the National Symphony Orchestra, and like, you're kind of under pressure always going in with a big orchestra like that. Anyway, I find that kind of daunting in ways, but love it. Like, it's a great experience. But I kind of was really happy because all the rehearsals went really well. You knew your stuff. Yeah, it was great, and actually walked out was no way nerves, no shakes, no nothing. The minute I lifted the fiddle to play my piece in the piece, it was like the fiddle was jumping out of my hand, like.
Really?
And then you see the problem you have is other people don't see it, but inside you're actually trying to pull that back. So now all of a sudden you're thinking about yourself and your nerves. You're not in that moment of music. So it's a very dangerous place then, because it's very easy to forget where you are. But it just came out of nowhere.
So like, you were completely fine until right when it started. Did the nerves come in, or you just couldn't play? Is that what you mean? But you were.
No, I got through it.
Okay.
But like, very poorly. I was very disappointed with my performance. Like,
really,
I was, and actually, to be honest, nobody else noticed. But I was so mad at myself.
So do you nearly think then there's nearly like, so if there was times where you were completely nervous before, and then if the thing went okay, do you nearly think there's a healthy aspect to the nerves to kind of get you into it, or?
I think it's to do with the pressure you put on yourself. I think I'm kind of trying to work my brain through that at the minute.
Yeah.
It's something actually I'm trying to work on a bit, because I'd like to beat it. Yeah. So like, it's funny, you could go one way and you could just never gig again.
Yeah.
Or you could say, feck this, I'm going to beat that. Like, because it's worth it when you are in a space and you're doing a gig and it goes well. It's like, it's great. Yeah. You know, you enjoy it then, like, and it feels different. You know, you can feel things coming with you. But if you're in that space where you're worried about your own nerves, and you're having that inner monologue the whole time about what's right and what's wrong, and oh Christ, what if this happens?
Yeah.
Then you're not engaging in that energy. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not in the right space for performing. Like, you know.
Yeah.
That's it. But yeah.
And were you doing a solo piece at that stage, or was it a groupie? Or what?
There was a kind of a group of 4 fiddlers that were doing a piece
together. Yeah.
Well, we done a couple of pieces on the night, but it was kind of that. Yeah. So we were down as kind of joint soloists.
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
We didn't have to stick the neck out too far, which was
yeah.
grand. And that's even more why it was annoying that particular time, because, like, you know, if you weren't having to do the solo thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of, you thought you were totally grand. And it just, I suppose it's a good example of how it just kind of can come out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? There's times if you just grand, you wouldn't care where you go.
So we'll finish up in a few minutes, but before we do, so you're the MDO of Music Generation Tipperary.
Mm-hmm.
What is Music Generation Tipperary, and how did you get involved in it?
So Music Generation is, like, it's a really important thing nationally, I feel. So it's about taking down barriers to music education and creating access for young people. So, like, in Tipperary, we work with schools, we work with youth groups, we have our own hubs going on. So hubs are like after school places where people come in and either go to music lessons or form bands and that type of thing. So, like, our hubs at the minute are, I can give you the list, you know, so people, in case people are wondering where we're at.
Yeah.
We've got a rock and pop hub going in Neenah.
Yeah.
We've got one going in Newport. Yeah. We have a rock and pop one in Thurles, and also a trad one in Thurles. We've got a hub in Killinall. We've got 2 hubs in Clonmel.
What kind of music do the Killinall is? That's
again, it's kind of guitar, drums, that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And in Tiptown, we've just started brass, and again a bit of kind of guitar, drums, that kind of stuff as well. Thurles, there's a lot of trad in Thurles, and again that kind of happened by accident. So we do a lot of fiddle. I'm teaching a bit of fiddle myself at the minute in Thurles too. I must say I enjoy it. Like, it's great. I crack some of the wee ones. Yeah. We've got a trad ensemble going in Clonmel and Thurles as well. We've got an Uilleann Pipe program, which Uilleann Pipe program. Yeah, that's based in Templemore and in Care.
Is there someone in both those places that teaches it then?
Yeah, there's a guy who comes. We're in partnership with a group called Napweebury Uilleann.
Okay.
So MPU, the Pipers Club, basically in Dublin, and they supply the teacher, a guy from Portlaoise called Alan O'Carroll, and he's great. Like, so he comes down on a Friday evening and does the classes in Templemore and Care. And then we're in about 45 school settings as well. And then we've these kind of one-off events. So we work with local partners, local festivals, and we kind of have maybe summer camps going on. Like, we've got loads coming up over the summer now. Like, so we've got we've got Zoe Conway, John McIntyre. I don't know if you remember. You probably remember John from the Revs. The band
I do.
Revs.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
John and his wife Zoe Conway is just like one of the most famous Irish fiddlers to ever live, I would say. She's amazing.
The Revs are from Donegal, aren't they?
They were from Donegal, yeah. So that was the story. We're delighted to have them back in Tip. We had what else have we going on? We've got a trad camp going on, and we've got a rock camp going on as part of Clonmel Junction Festival.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is great. What else have we got going on? We've got loads going on.
Yeah.
When we were young lads, anyway, we had our little band in Croke Street or whatever, and we were all plugged into one little lamp and the little light flickering on it, and equipment was always an issue. We'd borrow mics out of churches and stuff like that, you know. But if we were there now today, we could contact Music Generation, couldn't we? And we could. Yeah. Could we get stuff off you?
We have a full instrument bank, so that's one of the things that makes our kind of program, I suppose, special. And that, you know, the instrument bank means that if you're a young person, you're trying to take that cost barrier away from people. So, like, even if you want to learn the bass guitar, for example, like, to get a decent bass, an amp, leads, and get set up, you know, you're still talking about 500, 550 quid,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a lot of money.
Is,
so instead, you can rent them off us for $5 a week.
That's class,
$5 a week.
That's brilliant.
And see how you get on with it, like, you know. We've got a store of brass instruments, rock and pop instruments, everything from kits and electronic kits. And then we've got a store of iPads that we use in some of our schools programs, and we do some tech. We had some music tech programs going as well. Yeah. Using Soundtrap. We were chatting about earlier, program Soundtrap. And
is there anywhere for the bands to practice?
Well, we use, because we're under Tipperary ETB.
Yeah.
Generally, we use some of the schools that
class.
that
ETB
just give us
spaces.
they kind of give us the space to practice in.
Yeah.
We've a wee rock band in Clonmel. They're great, called Fast Junction.
Okay.
They're only going since October
Yeah,
there.
that's class.
And like the wee one's 9. Like the youngest is 9 and the oldest is 13. Like,
Brilliant.
but it's even to see them like meeting up on their Tuesday evenings to go in and practice. Like,
That's class.
so cool.
Will they still be playing at the festival then, Tangled Around, or is that?
we
Fast
hope so.
Junction.
So
Yeah,
we're kind of we're trying to find
what-
out if they're going to be. That's the problem when it's moved to August later in the year. Families are going on holidays.
Yeah.
So we're trying to kind of figure out what people are at. So, but
Yeah,
we'd hope
yeah.
that they would, like, so. But yeah, there's a few wee bands like that they're using the school spaces. But do you know what? It's something that's needed in Tip. And I know like the likes of Clean Mar and ones in Junction Fest are doing a lot of work on that having kind of dedicated venues for young people to come in and feel like it's not going back to school, that it's their space to play.
Yeah.
Great to have it. Like, you know, it's kind of an important thing, really, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
class. Do you have any goal? Like, is there a set goal, like, to set up a certain amount of places? Is there a set main goal for Music Generation Tipperary?
I think that like the main goals again, they're kind of general in a way. I mean, we work to plans, and you know, we do have a plan of how we're rolling this out.
Brilliant.
You know, and we have been rolling it, like we started in 2020. You know, it was commenced in like September 2019. So we were just about to have our pilots going in April 2020.
Yeah.
COVID hit in March.
I know,
so everything just got pulled, like, you know, and we had to reimagine pretty much everything straight away. So we are rolling things out slowly and in a very kind of practical way, you know.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I think it's a case of rising tide lifts all the ships. So some of the things we're very adamant about is like, where possible, we're trying to stay out of the way of providers and Tip that are already doing brilliant work all around, like, you know.
Yeah.
So where possible, we're kind of trying to do that add-on thing. So for example, the rock bands is a good example of that because there's loads of people doing guitar, drums, those things, but there's very few opportunities to put that all together.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So that seemed like a no-brainer for us. So there's things like that I think are very important. But generally, just it's for young people to have access to that kind of really high-quality performance music education. That's really important.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea of our classes, that hopefully we're getting more people in and giving people either tasters through the schools, and kind of our schools programs are really good because you could be learning ukulele in school, and then we'd kind of push you to, if there's somebody teaching ukulele or guitar in your area, that they go there.
That's class.
And then if they don't go there, that maybe there's a channel up from us as well. That whatever happens, there's a progression route for those young people. Yeah. So you want to just to become making music as normal as possible. You know what I mean? Like, give every young person this chance to kind of bring out
something,
their creative selves. Like, you know, it's really important.
Yeah, and that's really cool. We'll finish up there now. There was a nice conversation.
Do you want to play a tune for us? No, or do you?
I don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you want to play a tune? Yeah.
Whatever you think.
I'd like to hear
whatever.
tune.
I don't.
Yeah.
Definitely get it up.
Get the nerves going.
Yeah, we'll put you.
Do you mind? Did you mind this? Like, was this nervous written or talking, or?
It can be at the start.
Was it? Yeah. It's weird to get into it. Like, it takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
I've
done this kind of stuff before, but I'm nearly always more comfortable chatting.
That's
That's kind of the story. Although I'm kind of now trying to think back about what I was saying. The fact we were chatting at one stage about banshees is making me kind of nervous. I don't know what to say.
I know it.
Like, yeah. Anyway.
Lovely.
Just give myself a bit of space here.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, play a wee tune. This is play a trad tune, sure.
Do, lovely.
And this is a tune called "The Girl That Broke My Heart."
I ask you probably one more ignorant question. Is there a difference between the violin and fiddle? What is the difference? Sorry, is what I meant to ask. Obviously,
it's a fiddle if you're buying it and a violin if you're selling it.
Okay.
Anyway, I was just saying.
That's right.
It's exactly the same instrument. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a million for everyone who watched on YouTube or listened on Spotify. Thanks to Aidan for coming on, and thanks Brendan for filling in for Stevie, who we had to cut out of the show because he was just like absolutely rude, constantly talking, give us no chance for Hugh couldn't get a word in with Stevie. So, but Brendan's here from now on.
Thanks for all the donations in the letterbox as well.
Yeah, Hugh left a little box, kind of like
outside the door.
and you can donate money to the podcast. Right, thanks a million, and see you next week. Bye.
I love the taste of strawberry medicine as it runs down my neck. I feel it draw me in, and when it settles on my mind, just know you'll find me there inside.